awful headache while we were meeting today, just to talk about service and whatnot, and so I wasn't paying a lot of attention. And then just before we started things, Chris and I had a little prayer together, and Chris prayed that the Lord would take my headache. I mean, it was a bad headache. I felt like vomiting earlier today and stuff, and miraculously it's gone. So that was pretty awesome. It's always a privilege to be able to break open the Word of God, whether it's in front of a group of people, or whether it's just at home on the couch, or pressed up against your pillow before you head off to sleep in the evening. And I always feel like, regardless of what I've read or been told about the Scriptures, when I invite the Spirit to be a part of my reading and a part of my experience through the Word, I always find new great stuff. I mean, we've heard so many stories over and over and over again. We've heard the stories of David and Goliath. A lot of these little ones that we, especially those of us who grew up Adventist, got in my Bible story friends and all that kind of stuff, and what is it? My Bible friends, that's what it is. And I wasn't much of a reader as a small child, so a lot of these things that we grew up getting kind of the nuts and bolts of, and then as you read them closer, the Lord just has so much more to say. I know that in my formative years, I was told a lot what the Lord was saying. I went to Little Creek Academy. Anybody here know Little Creek Academy? Ever even heard of it? Okay, Chris. Okay, you know it. It's no longer Little Creek Academy. It's actually Heritage Academy now. And they sold the property there in Knoxville, Tennessee, and moved the school. But I remember while I was there, I learned a lot of stuff about what I could do and what I couldn't do. I was asked to lead song service one day, and little did I know that would be preparing me for what I do now. I was asked to lead song service one day, and man, we were there, we were singing together, and I always forget the lyrics to this song that I was leading, but it was I pray, hallelujah, give me oil in my lamp, keep me burning till the break of day. Thank you. As I continue with the story, you'll see why it ended up that way. So partway through the song, I'm leading this song for all of my student body, probably a similar number as we have here right now. And while in the middle of the song, I mean, somebody's playing guitar, I'm singing, I'm leading, one of the staff members comes up to me and says, we need to stop singing that song right now, grabs me by the shirt, walks me off of the stage. Literally walks me right off, says, we don't sing that, you need to stop that. Walked me right off the stage. I guess I always kind of lived this, I was gifted with this obliviousness as to why I should be upset about that. But I was like, really? Okay, all right. So somebody else's turn, musical song leading or something. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. But I also remember that when I first got to school there, I went into the calf after a hard day of work. We had gardens there, learning to pick the corn and shuck it and all that kind of stuff. We had these gardens there, and we did a lot of our own produce and a lot of our own vegetables at the school, which was a great learning experience for me. And so I'd come in from a long day of work, had my shorts on, I walk into the cafeteria. When I walk in, the staff, almost as if on cue, like I had said, now let's please rise as Jason enters the room. They got up and came and crowded around me and lording over me. They said, what are you doing? And I said, eating lunch? Like, this is a trick question. Everybody else is here doing the same thing. They're like, Jason, we don't wear shorts in the cafeteria. And I was looking around, trying to see if that was true. Sure enough, I was the only one with shorts on, so they told me before I could partake of my cream corn that I had picked. Go back and change. So I did. I went back and changed. And I learned to really appreciate boarding academy. I really learned to appreciate it because it was a gift. It was a blessing because I got to make a lot of great friends there. I mean, you're there in this environment where, you're there. You're 24/7 doing everything together. In fact, it's dangerous to date in boarding academy because it's really like being married without sleeping together. You do everything together. You eat together. You walk together. You go to church together. You play together. It's boarding academy. You bond with people in a very, very significant way. So I have the privilege of working at boarding academy now, and I love it. But the thing about it is the memories that you make at boarding academy are so awesome because the stories you get to tell. Why? Because everything you do is illegal. Right? Everything. They were like, what are you doing wearing shorts in the cafeteria? Well, I just got done robbing someone, huh? And now I'm continuing my crime spree with these shorts. Right? So, I did learn a lot of cool things in boarding academy, but I also learned a little bit to disdain the status quo. What was typically the expectation, maybe it's a social expectation or a religious expectation or whatever it is, and it made me really want to identify in my own life, not so much how something was taking place, but what were the good reasons. I got myself in a lot of trouble because, this little guy right here, I remember when he first started coming to church, or when I first started coming to church here, you could not go 5 minutes without him asking you the question, why? 15, 20 times? Does it still happen? Oh, I'm sure. Always wanting to know the reason why. And I got myself into a lot of trouble asking the question, why? Is that why aren't we allowed to wear shorts in the calf? Is that just medically you can't partake of food with shorts on? I don't know. So I got in trouble for asking the question why quite a bit. And I do feel like the Lord wants us to continue to have a deeper understanding of why. Why we do anything that we do, why we say the things that we say, why we behave the way we behave, or don't behave a certain way, whatever that looks like. The question why is crucial for us to answer. And I think that one reason I really love this book is because it spoke to people of its time, hundreds and thousands of years ago. But the principles that have made it into this book don't get old. They remind us every day. Even though it was specific to a group of people, they remind us every day of the nuances of life, of relationship, of behavior, the qualities of honesty and integrity, the purpose for being genuine or disingenuous. And my time at boarding academy, man, I look back on it with such fond memories. Even the times when I really got in trouble for some good stuff. It was bad then. I was complaining about it, but 15 years later, you look back, you laugh with your friends. Remember what we did? Yeah, remember how we almost get kicked out? You don't remember that part. You look back, you remember all those good times. The boarding academy taught me that I need to identify why things are happening. What's the good reason behind each and every piece? A couple years ago, Chris preached a sermon out of the very same passage that I want us to reopen today and take a look at. And it's found in Isaiah 58. I know we have a lot of different scripts around the room. Some of you brought your own. Some of you have one sitting next to you. But again, each and every time we come to church, I think one of the things that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're uplifting the Word of God. There is power in just reading the Word of God. And so that's what I want us to do this morning. I want us to look at why. What's being said here? As we take a look, this year is about Bible studies. We take a look into this Word. What are the things we're asking ourselves? We're asking ourselves, what's happening with God in these stories? What is God saying to us? What's happening with these people? We ask this question, what's going on with these people? And then, how does it relate to me? How can it be a part of who I am? How can it impact my daily life? And again, I want to encourage you guys, even if you're not big into Bible study, you don't have to be a great Bible scholar. Spend 10 minutes every Monday studying a passage of the Bible, asking yourself those 3 questions. What's happening with God in this story? What's happening with these people? And what does it mean to me? Then for the rest of the week, apply that to your life. Find out what all that means. We don't have to have gone to school. Hey, Bob. We don't have to have gone to school to become great theologians. We just have to have our hearts open to the Spirit. And so we find in Isaiah 58, it says this. Shout it aloud. Anyone? Shout it aloud. This is a command. Do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet. Man, this sounds exciting, doesn't it? Man, I mean, this is the beginning of something. The something. What is that something? We read on. Declare to my people their rebellion. Oh, not quite as exciting. And to the house of Jacob their sins. When it says declare to my people their rebellion, who is this passage talking to? Who are my people? Anyone? Okay, the Hebrews. Good. So, what's God saying? God's saying, I got something to say, and nobody better miss it, right? And who's he saying it to? The people of old, the Hebrews, the Israelite nation. But it doesn't say, and speak to my people 2,000 years ago. It says, declare to my people their rebellion. And if I had to be honest, who would I say that I am? Anyone? Hopefully, a person of God. Hopefully, I'm one of those people that God can still talk to today through this passage. But this doesn't sound like it's going to be good news for me. Declare to my people their rebellion, and to the house of Jacob their sins. For day after day they seek me out. And I want us to pay attention to some small words in this passage that have big meaning. Day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways. What do you think a big word is there in that sentence? Seem. They seem eager to know my ways. As if they were a nation that does what is right. What do you think is a big word there? As if. As if they were a nation that does what is right and has not forsaken the commands of its God. Dang. That's awful, isn't it? Basically, what's one word that we like to use to describe religious people, especially religious critics? What's one word that we like to use to describe them that this really is fleshing out who they are? Anyone? Hypocrite. That's right. You have said that all of your appearances look this way. You know, if you take a look at some points in Scripture and you talk about the temple in Jerusalem, they say that from the hill, as you come over the hill and you look down at Jerusalem, man, can you imagine the hustle and bustle and the beauty of that place? What did it say? What did it say from a distance? It said, who lives here? God. God lives here. But when you took a close look, what was painfully obvious? God was nowhere to be found. It only looked godly from the outside. And so God is saying to us here in this passage, I'm going to shout it so you can't miss it. I'm going to tell you that because you're my people, I've got some bad news for you. This is who you actually are. Day after day you seek me out. You seem eager to know my ways, as if you were a nation that does what is right and has not forsaken the commands of his God. They ask me for just decisions, praying to God for justice. I mean, who doesn't want justice in their lives? Anyone? We all want justice. Sometimes we're experiencing things. We're going through hardships in our lives, and we're asking ourselves, is there something I'm doing that's wrong? Why is it not panning out for me? Why is this relationship stressful? Why is this job situation really kind of a downer? Why is it that no matter where I turn in my school, I'm being told, don't wear shorts? You ask me for just decisions, and you seem eager. You seem eager for God to come near. And then God takes a minute. He wants to quote. I like it when God quotes us, because when God says something that we say, sometimes it makes it look so foolish, doesn't it? You ever had somebody repeat back to you the thing that you've just said, and you're like, oh boy, why did I say that? And so here God's going to repeat something to us. He says, quote, why have we fasted, they say, and you have not seen it? Why have we humbled ourselves, and you have not noticed? It's an interesting perspective. I struggle to be around people, and maybe I'm this guy sometimes. I don't know. I don't want to be. But I struggle to be around people who really just tell me a lot about what they've done. I don't know about you guys. But I just, at some point, I don't mind stories, people sharing stories and things like that. But there are certain people that it's tough for me to be around because they say things like, well, I mean, did you see what I did? Really? You launched in like that? Okay. No, I didn't. Please, tell me more. I'm so interested. Well, I did. I mean, I'm running out of fingers here. Like, wow, that's awesome. God points that out. He says, you people are doing these things just to be noticed. You're crying out, why have we fasted? Look, we're fasting, but you're not noticing. So we will call attention to ourselves, because that will make it so much more meaningful. Why have we fasted, they say, and you have not seen it? We're doing all these great things to be noticed. Why have we humbled ourselves, and you have not noticed? Jesus talks about this in Matthew. He talks about being a secret agent, and at some point we're going to dive into the script about what it means to be a secret agent. But Jesus talks about the idea that it's crucial that we know why we're doing the things that we're doing, because if it's to be noticed, we've lost our way. Nobody wants to see the awesome things that you have done because you've done them to be noticed. That's a drag to have that type of personality hanging around. And so he goes on, he says, yet on the day of your fasting, you do as you please. Isn't that interesting? Anybody know what fasting is? I think we could all probably come up with some kind of little definition here. Most of us would be right. Anybody care to just shout something out here? Fasting. Say what? Okay, giving up something for a reason. That's excellent. We used to do what was called the welcome table. No, not welcome table. Open table out at Rio Lindo, and we would ask our students, this is at another boarding academy, we would ask our students, how many of you would be willing to give up a meal so that we can save the revenue from that meal, and then we'll take it out and feed the homeless? Our student body got on board with that. Gave up a meal so that we could then take it into town and feed people. I was very impressed by our student body that they'd be willing to do that. Fasting, giving up something for a reason. Fasting. On your day of fasting, you do as you please. What does the Bible say about fasting? How should you fast? Anyone know? Humbly, in secret. You don't stand out on the street corner and say, I'm so hungry. Oh, look at me. Please. Aren't I holy? Just holy and hungry? Fasting as you please. What a waste of a fast if that's the way it comes across to people. I'll be honest with you, I don't fast well. I get pretty hungry. And then I want to complain about it. I'm not a good faster. On the day of your fasting, you do as you please. And you exploit all your workers. Man, what do you think was happening back in the day? You exploit all your workers. Anyone? Anyone? Slavery, oppression. You're holding people down. You fast in a way that is so self-seeking that the others around you are held down. Can you imagine being that individual these days? Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife, and in striking each other with wicked fists. What do you think that means? Quarreling and strife. I'll tell you, I've seen some really spiritual arguments go wrong really quick in the need to be right. Why do we do these things? Why do we fast this way? Why do we act this way and behave this way? Why do we not do this? Or why do we choose to do this? And if you do it different, guess what? You are wrong. Absolutely wrong. I used to work with a dean who said, you know, you can be dead right, and everybody's going to think you're dead wrong. Because of the way we fast. Because of the way we have to be right about the things that we believe are true. And is truth important? Would everybody agree with that? Yeah. Truth, very important. When you hear something that's true and you do the opposite, that's, man, you're in a scary spot. So truth is very important. But man, I think sometimes we make truth look so foolish in the way we share it. Your fasting ends in quarreling. You do it in such a way that you're really only doing it to be right. Just to be right. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. Now, I don't know if that means anything to you, but is it a scary thought to think that the person that you are today, as a representative of God, God is saying your prayers may not be heard because of the individual that you are on my behalf. Your petitions are falling on deaf ears because of the person that you are as you represent God. Have you ever thought before that a relationship with God is actually a two-way street? I mean, sometimes, I'll admit, I've treated God more like a vending machine. I have a need. My need is a Snickers. I put my money in. I choose what I would like. That comes to me. But God is not a vending machine. God is part of a relationship. Back to that little quote. Why have we fasted, they say, and you have not seen? Why have we humbled ourselves and you have not noticed? Why? God says, because you cannot behave the way you are behaving right now and expect me to. You know, there are things that I would like my wife to notice. There are. I'm sorry, babe. But some of those things are not important to her. Even if I do them, they're not going to be important to her, and she may not notice them. And so I have found that it's going to be important for me to find out what's important to her so that when I do those things, she will notice them. But if I constantly do the things that are important to me and expect her to notice, there is a likelihood that they will go unnoticed. I'll give you an example. Long before we were dating, she purchased a vehicle, a nice little Toyota Corolla. And I put my 2 cents in as to what she should have purchased, knowing that later on it would be partly mine. No, I'm just kidding. One of those things I suggested would be some alloy wheels. Alloy wheels, babe. Now, if I go out and I shine up those nice hubcaps that she has, there's a chance that she will not notice. Because alloy wheels are not on her radar, nor are the cleanliness necessarily of her hubcaps. But if I was to go into the kitchen and detail the sink, okay, all right. Did you hear that, Joe? I did. Okay. And detail the sink, then she notices. The last time I detailed the sink, she came in and said, "Man, that is awesome." And she did also follow that up by saying, "I thought I got it clean." But the things that are important to her, if I do those, she's going to notice them. The things that are important to me, I'll notice them and I'll feel good about them, and that's okay. But if it stops there, I haven't really done anything to serve her. Because I love a nice, clean alloy wheel. It looks good. But that's not going to mean a whole lot to my wife, probably. Why have you not been heard? Because you can't fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. And so he says, he asked a rhetorical question. Is this the kind of fast I have chosen? And I like rhetorical questions. Very few things make you feel dumber. Is this the kind of fast I have chosen? Only a day for man to humble himself, because guess what? It's important to be humble. I truly believe that if you're going to catch a good woman, you have to have at least a little cockiness. But if you're going to keep her, you have to have some humility. So is it only a day to be humble? Yeah, humble is important. But is it only a day for that? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying in sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? I mean, does that sound like a pretty exciting day for God? Lord, here we are. And look at us, we're holy. Do you feel it, Lord? Do you feel our joy and excitement for you? People around us, do you feel any joy and excitement? Anything like that? Hallelujah. Congregation, if you just maybe greet somebody today and tell them how excited you are to be here and all that kind of stuff. Is that exciting to God? Does that reveal to God how pleased we are to be in His presence? Does that reveal to anyone around us that we're pleased to be in God's presence? I saw an interview with somebody one time, and to this individual's credit, they were a scientist, And, scientists are definitely a different breed of people when it comes to social norms. And the interviewer was asking the scientist about something that was going on, and the scientist said, "Oh yeah, it's really awesome. I mean, we're just so excited about it. I mean, just the possibilities of what we've really been diving into recently." And the interviewer said, "Really, you're excited? Well, somebody should tell your facial expressions and body language." There's something about being excited deep within our hearts that makes it obvious on the outside. Is this just a day for sackcloth and ashes? To put on this cloak of holiness? Is that what you call a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? One thing I like about the Sabbath is it's a weekly reminder of fasting. The Bible makes it clear that we're to stop doing some certain things on the Sabbath, and I'll be honest with you, as a youngster growing up in a boarding academy, I was really good at a list of things I was not allowed to do on the Sabbath. I knew them, okay? And you guys can know them with me. You are not allowed to swim on Sabbath. Wade, yes. Swim, no. Okay? We were not allowed to go out on the jet skis on Sabbath. Canoe, yes. Jet ski, no. Okay? We were not allowed to throw the football on Sabbath. Frisbee, yes. Football, no. I was good. I had a whole list of things I knew that I could not do on the Sabbath, including wearing shorts. This whole list of things not to do. Is this what you would call a fast? A day acceptable to the Lord? What I realized is nobody had given me a good list of things to do on the Sabbath, but more importantly, a great reason why I would want to do them. Why is it so important? I lost that element. Why is it so important? So the Lord goes on. He says, another rhetorical question. Apparently the people should have known this and forgot it. Is this not the kind of fast I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice. What does that mean? What does that mean? Anyone? Loose the chains of injustice. Anyone? Okay, set you free. Freedom. Did you know that fasting is designed to be an activity of freedom? Because you're stopping doing something for what? A purpose. There's a purpose behind your fasting. A genuine, real, honest-to-goodness purpose behind what you do. Is this not the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and and untie the cords of the yoke and set the oppressed free. And can you imagine if we lived in a world where people's number one goal was to stop injustice? Where people's number one goal was to take the burdens off of their fellow man? Was to set people free from whatever was going on. What if we lived in that world? There's two things that I think this verse is telling us, and we're going to discover both of them. Moving on here to verse 7. Isaiah 58. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter and bring them into your home? I got to thinking about this when it said to share your food with the hungry. See, the problem here with these people is that they had become a club. Everything about what they did was about them. They had forgotten the gift of service. God is saying to them, you people are so self-absorbed. Even your fasting, you do it for you. Is that odd? That's weird to be like that. I got to thinking to myself one day, like, I grew up in an Adventist church. We had potluck. I never remember us going and inviting people to come to potluck. I got older and I went to church and we had potluck, and I never remember inviting people to come to potluck. Now, sure, sometimes a stranger would walk through the door and some nice individual would come to them and say, do you have something to do for lunch? We have a potluck. Now, we'd eat it without you, but you're happy to come too. What if potluck was no longer about just feeding our members, and instead, every single time, we made sure that somebody else was fed? Wow. That somebody's hungry belly was full. Not because we did something. Yeah, we all have to eat. No question about it. It's fun to hang out. But what if we did it with a purpose? And instead of just having potluck, because that's what we have to do, we eat lunch, what if we had a real reason why? Why we do the things that we do? Feeding the hungry. Is this fast not for you to share food with the hungry and to provide the poor with a place to go? And when you see the naked, to clothe him and not turn away from your own flesh and blood. It's interesting, this little line, not turn away from your own flesh and blood. This translation that I have here says, what I am interested in seeing you do is sharing your food with the hungry, inviting the homeless poor into your homes, putting clothes on the shivering ill-clad, and being available to your families. Your own flesh. It's really unbelievable if I had to go through and parse my own life and take a look at all the times I was willing to ignore somebody else's need. Man, that would be a sad testimony. So much need in this world, and all the times I have overlooked with blind eye, with a careless attitude. So much need out there. How can I turn my back on my own flesh? It's saying here that that's just crazy. That you see somebody else's need and you do nothing about it. How can we be that group of people? Then, though, if you do these things, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. This is one thing that I think that the Bible speaks of several mysteries. One is the mystery of love. Even though I think we kind of get a grasp about what love is, I mean, we understand it. It happens to us. We feel it. It's part of our lives. We feel other people's loves. We know we love certain things, but the Bible speaks of it as a mystery. The ability to truly, deeply understand it is mysterious. I think another thing that the Bible speaks of, and I don't know if it's specifically pointed out as a mystery, but I do think it's a spiritual phenomenon, and that is this. When we give of ourselves to others, the spiritual phenomenon is that we become healed. It's very odd, and we'll read on about what that healing looks like. Your healing will quickly appear if you do these things for other people, and your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Suddenly, you don't have to worry about yourself anymore, because once you start to worry about other people, God has your back. You don't have to do these fastings and these activities for self-serving. You just have to genuinely care. And God will have your back. Then you will call and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help and he will say, "Here I am." I don't know if it's ever occurred to me before that sometimes when I cry to the Lord about things that I want in my life, that I have become so selfish about it that he is incapable of giving me an answer that is yes. What a drag. And the remedy is so simple. The remedy is so simple. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, I don't think that we serve right here in a community of people who are interested in doing this to one another. But I know that back in the day, there was a lot of finger pointing about how holy people were and how not holy they were. And the formula by which holiness comes to us. Have you done this and this and this and this? Oh, then you are holy. Welcome. A lot of finger pointing. I don't know that we have that right here in this community, but it can happen. We can point our fingers about a lot of stuff. Recently, Joe and I were working together, and I had to go and apologize to him because I had done some complaining to him about people. And that's not who I want to be. I had to go and say, Joe, I'm in a funk. Little things that people are doing, they've gotten me, and it's getting on my nerves, and here I am complaining about others. And pointing fingers because I don't like the way they're doing it, or I don't like what they're doing. And again, that's a selfish perspective. And I had to go and apologize to him. And we spent a few minutes complaining about some other things, and then we moved on. But the finger pointing, man, there are few things that will tear a community down more than this malicious type of backstabbing, talking, and whatnot. And sometimes we try to do it in earnest, Sometimes we have a genuine concern or whatever. But I wonder if our genuine concern allows us to actually tell people how we feel. Tough to do that. Tough to be honest with somebody and say, this is actually how you make me feel. Maybe that's the way to fight that. I don't know. But if you will do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you would spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like noonday. I think so often that we forget that the root of sin is simply selfishness. The root of sin is I think about myself more than I think about other people, more than I think about God. And why? What happens when we live like that? Apparently, we live in darkness because it says if you will do these things, then your light will rise in the darkness. Suddenly, this place you were making dark with your behavior will now be a place of light. And your night will become like noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in the sun-scorched land. And He will strengthen your frame. Isn't that unbelievable? If you give of yourself, if you take the things, if you're fasting, why? Because you want to feed the hungry. You want to welcome somebody into your home. You want to expend your energy, your time, your money, your resources, your family, your whatever it is. If you want to do those things on behalf of other people, what's the spiritual miracle here? Your frame will actually be made strong. That is a phenomenon. And you know what I was taught about the Sabbath? Rest. Do nothing on the Sabbath. Feeding the hungry may take some real work on the Sabbath. Did you know that? Inviting somebody, giving somebody a home might take real work on the Sabbath. Incorporating people into your community could take real work. And there's other things that are listed here. We're not there yet, but can you believe it? Your frame will be strengthened as you expend energy. That is awesome. That is the miracle of serving a supernatural God. Is that when you are concerned about others, the benefit doesn't stop with them. Your frame will be strengthened. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Isn't that a phenomenon? You would think that after expending all that energy, you would be what? Tired, exhausted. But when you do it for the real reasons, God says it is rejuvenating. Not only will your frame be strong, but apparently you will start to grow flowers. A well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. The energy would keep going and going and going because you have identified why you're doing the things that you're doing. Out of genuine concern for others, and there's one more thing here, and we'll get to that. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the old foundations. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a building project. Can that happen on the Sabbath? I don't know. You will be called the repairer of the broken walls, restorer of the streets with dwellings. What does your version say there, Eric? Same version. You? Come on, people. Right here. Same, good, aren't naturally. Right here. What's it say? We are right here at verse 12. Okay, the old waste places. Raise up the foundations. Repair of the branch. And restorer of streets to dwell in. I like that. Restorer of streets to dwell in. What's a street for? Anyone? I have learned that in Reading, a street very well may be a place where cars park so they can talk to pedestrians. And no matter what kind of hurry you are in, you will wait until this conversation is over. Joe? Oh, you have another one?
I have another one.
All right.
You'll use the old rubble of past lives to build anew. Rebuild the foundations from out of your past. You'll be known as those who can fix anything. Restore old ruins, rebuild, renovate, and make the community livable again.
That's great, isn't it? Make the community livable again. What about it? Do you think that maybe actually, even though we're all surviving and existing right now, do you think that actually Reading, and maybe even sometimes our own church body, is actually an unlivable community? Because we're not following these instructions. We're not really committed to the reason why we would do any of it. Are we just a facade? I saw him cut down a tree recently, and inside, just hollow, nothing. Everything about that whole tree looked good, but inside, nothing. I know I don't want to be that tree. Restore of the streets of dwelling. So here in Reading, what are streets for? What are ideally streets for? Anyone? Yeah. They're a way to go, right? Another version says paths, the path, the way of a journey. Can you imagine if at some point we realized, you know what? There are trees laying across the paths. There are downed telephone poles in the way of people being able to make it to God. But if we did things the way we were supposed to, we would clear those paths again. The streets would be made anew for what they were designed for, to be able to connect people with God. And then we get to one of my favorite verses. Actually, this used to be one of my most hated verses in the Bible because of my boarding academy time. Verse 13, if you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath, and from doing as you please on my holy day. Oh man, doing as you please on my holy day. I was told that over and over and over again. The Bible says you're not supposed to do what you want to do on the Sabbath. And I think on some level that is true. The Sabbath should be a special day. The thing about it is, though, is that they had made it special with stuff that was still self-serving. And that's the key. Is Sabbath about you, or is it about others? See, this isn't just about whether you like tossing the football around or not. That's not what it means when this says, as you please on the Sabbath. This is saying this is not a day for you to serve yourself. And so we move on. It says here, and from doing as you please on the holy day, if you would call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable. And here's the other thing that we want to find ourselves doing when it comes to fasting, when it comes to why we do what we do. The two questions we can ask ourselves are this: are the things that I do making the world around me a better place? Making the lives around me richer and healthier and happier? That's the first thing. And the second thing is this: does it actually honor God? Is the way I behave and the person that I am, does it really honor God? Those two things, if we can answer those two things honestly, the why becomes so paramount, and really the process by which we do it becomes less important. Because there might be a million ways that we can honor God, and there might be a million ways that we can identify to make people's lives better. But if we can all be on the same page about why we're doing it, check this out, what will happen. And if you honor it, not by going your own way or doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find your joy in the Lord. And I will cause you to rise on the heights of the land and to feast on the inheritance of your father Jacob. Can you imagine that? There's an inheritance for God's people. An inheritance that belongs to us. Why? Because we are God's people. But sometimes we don't get our inheritance. Why? Because the things that we do aren't genuine. They're not really for God, and they're not really for other people. And I'm not saying anyone in here in this room is rotten, but man, it is easy. It is easy to be so concerned about myself that I forget about others. And I forget about God. Not because I'm rotten, but because I forget why these things are so important. The mouth of the Lord has spoken this. If we can get down to the reason why, and what are the two reasons this is talking about? Who are we supposed to serve? Others, and make things honorable to God. It's a pretty simple formula. It really is. We don't have to worry about whether it's a frisbee or football then. What we can know is that if we're not doing it to reach people's needs or to honor God, then stop. That's easy. But if we are, by all means, 2 footballs. I just want to encourage us to be a group of people that are genuinely seeking the reason why we do everything that we do. And that Sabbath isn't made this burdensome list of what not to do, but instead it's blown wide open with the possibilities of how we can make other people's lives better, and in doing so we can honor God.